16, Wonder and Woe, Industrialization of America. We'll deal with urbanization later. This is industrialization of America. Of course, we start with a picture about labor unrest. Now, your authors tell you, remind you, point out how sympathetic this view is to the worker, how it individualizes the workers, puts a face on the issue, meant to soften, meant to win over, depicting the laborers as individuals and not this, angry, rock-throwing mob, although I do see your boy over here. Looks like he'd get ready to pick him up a rock right up front. So, kids hiding around But anyway, let's get on into this chapter. We see the railroads and that relationship with the friendly government, how crucial that was. And I just thought I would point that out to you once again. Of course, big business wants government to help but not hinder. So minimal regulations. And our little term, laissez-faire government, hands-off policy, that pretty much defines politics during the Gilded Age. This whole period's the Gilded Age. After the Civil War to the turn of the century, Mark Twain named it the Gilded Age. He's responsible for that little moniker. Of course, it's everything looks good on the surface, but inside we've got some deep ills. We've got some serious problems we need to address, which we will not address until we get to the progressivism chapter, that great, enormous reform movement. But we'll get to it when we get to it. Well, let's move on. Nice little comparisons here. Check out steel. The percent increase, 79,761.5% increase. That's just unfathomable, is it not? Steel and oil, the two clear juggernauts here. Coal, for our neck of the woods, of course, takes a huge jump, 1,250 times percentage increase. Lumber, be your next commodity. We got railroads and farms, don't forget about them. Number 3 overall here is patents issued, obviously during the lifetime of our boy Thomas Edison up in Menlo Park. Hell, he had an invention factory, didn't he? Population, 142% increase. We're just ticking right along. I really, really love this idea of horizontal and vertical integration. Andrew Carnegie gets all the gets a big nod here, but I guess horizontal integration, you're a multi-millionaire, and vertical integration, by the time you get into purchasing, controlling, your definition says the different phases of production. I guess that's what differentiated the multimillionaires and the billionaires back in the day. We've got the picture of it here, of the vertical, an example. I mean, let's just face it, if you're in the paper industry and you own the daggone forest and the logging company and the railroad company to ship it, and I mean, my goodness, you're as compared to at the bottom, the horizontal, just buying up other paper companies. Again, multi-millionaire versus gillionaire, I guess. As we're talking about Rockefeller, your book, we get into Sherman Antitrust Act, 1890. what I'm adding to this is one of two huge laws that significance does not come until later. Sherman Antitrust Act 1890, we did not enforce. It wasn't an effective instrument quite yet. You wait till Teddy Roosevelt takes over the presidency, and he's going to turn it into a part of his big stick way of doing things. The other law of delayed significance for us is the Pendleton Act, 1883, and we'll talk about that here in due time. Back to the labor unrest, hard times for the industrial worker. We got to know the difference between an industrial union and a craft union. Craft union's been around forever. A craft union is a union of workers who have the same skill, the same craft. It's a skilled workers only labor union. The pipe fitters union. Okay, everybody doing the same job. An industrial union is a union of the entire industry. Railway union. Auto workers union nowadays. So everybody in the industry, regardless of job, regardless of skill. Now, a lot of students like to try to take the easy way out and say craft unions for skilled worker, industrial union is for unskilled worker. That's not true. Craft union is for skilled worker. Industrial union is for both skilled and unskilled. Remember, everybody in an industry. So try to keep that straight as you go through this labor situation, and we'll go through it again as we proceed through the chapters. And here is a lovely grim sight. Speaks to human nature, I guess, as we all got to be there to witness the execution, the last legal public execution like this here, ladies and gentlemen, Harrodsburg, Kentucky. Women, check it out. Picture says 1,000 words. Capitalism, championed and criticized. We talk about capitalism in the book, but I don't really appreciate the definition. Your book's definition, it's an economic system in which the market economy determines the price of goods. Well, fine and good, but that's only a part of it. That's not really the definition. Now, I'm going to update you. Capitalism, your economy here in the United States, capitalism is an economic system in which the means of production are owned by private money, including corporations, so that the price of goods is determined in the private sector. Market economy, supply, demand, So, means of production. The means of production. What produces? You probably think about factories. Don't forget about farms. Let's look at socialism. Just for kicks. Well, to set it in context here, socialism will be an economic system in which the means of production are owned by, I got a little forgot the ED there for you, in which the means of production are owned by public money. That's government money, so that the price of goods is determined in the public sector, in other words, by the government. These two ideas are not compatible. Your economy your economy depends on private money. There are socialist countries in this world. Now, socialism and communism, we have to distinguish between those two. We'll do that later. But for right now, my little saying that I've developed is that communism is socialism with a machine gun. So, communism uses socialism, but then adds a few other little juicy details to the definition. Let's just stay with socialism right now. The difference between capitalism and socialism is who owns the means of production, who owns the farms and factories, who decides on the price of goods, what decides the price of goods. Now, in your choices and consequences, to strike or not to strike, what's the purpose of a labor union? 2 words: collective bargaining. When all else fails, the labor union has to go on strike. That's the ultimate weapon of a labor union. Hopefully you don't get that far. In bargaining collectively, the hope is to secure, well, what you want. Do you want more pay? Do you want less hours? Do you want better conditions? Safety and sanitation codes? More money? You know, it always kind of goes back to money. But anyway, to strike or not to strike, if you're in a union and you ain't willing to go on strike, well, then you're probably already lost. But that makes it controversial. And don't ever forget, these workers were going against a formidable foe. Well, they're going against all the money in the world, you know, it seems like. These dudes had more money than the government. The government went to these guys for help. That's a tall order. And then when you look at Grover Cleveland as president, when the railway union goes on strike, well, Grover can't let that happen because the government uses the railroads to deliver mail, to deliver troops, to deliver people and product. The government wants to make sure that all that's available for the welfare of the American people. So Grover intervenes to keep the railroads running. Well, from a labor perspective, it's like, well, he's against us. Well, Grover made it very clear. You cannot shut the railroads down. When I was in college, Ronald Reagan told the air traffic controllers, you can't go on strike. You can't be shutting my airports down. They did, because he can't fire us all, can he? Ronald Reagan fired them all. Well, I guess that's the risk you got to take. So, labor unions, don't forget that ultimate, the strike.